This is lab number 4, creating a managed web server. So in this lab, you are going to learn how to create a managed server using the admin console. I'll also walk through how you will start this server and how you can monitor its health and status through the admin console. So let's go ahead and open up a terminal window. We are going to be working with the demo domain that we've created during the previous labs. So let's go ahead and start the admin server for this domain, for the demo domain. So let's navigate to Udemy Home, Lab Home, Domains, and then Demo Domain. And if you recall, during the last lab, in order to start the admin server, we've got to run the start WebLogic script. So go ahead and run that now. Okay, once your admin server's up and running, go ahead and launch your browser. And what we want to do is navigate to the admin console. Let's go ahead and enter in the URL. And log in using the WebLogic and WebLogic 123 credentials. Okay, so once you're in the admin console, we create a managed server by going over to the demo domain structure. Go ahead and expand under environment and then click on servers. And this servers page lists all the servers that are created within this domain. So right now we only have the admin server. Go ahead and click new to create a new server here. And if you're following along in the lab guide, lab number 4 has a table that defines the configuration parameters that we're going to use to create this managed server. So go ahead and look at that table and use those values to configure this managed server. So the server name in this case, this is the logical name. This is not a host name or an IP address or anything like that. This is simply a logical name. So for the purposes of this lab, I'm going to name it MS1, Managed Server 1. And for listen address, I'm going to leave it blank for now. I know in the lecture that I said you should always define a listen address for your servers. I'm going to leave this blank for now, because we will define a listen address later on in a future lab that will make use of host names. For the listen server port, go ahead and enter 8001. And this server does not belong to a cluster. We're going to create this as a standalone server. So go ahead and click Next. And then we're just looking at a summary of the configuration parameters for this managed server. And then once you're done, click Finish. And that's it. So you've created a managed server. The servers table should list the server that you just created, the MS1. And you can take a look at this servers table and it will tell you some interesting information. So the type of server that's configured, we have the cluster's blank since these servers are standalone. A machine that it's assigned to. Now machines are logical representations of physical servers. They are used when configuring Node Manager to start your managed servers, and we'll discuss that in a future lab, as well as for whole server and service migration. A machine tells WebLogic where a managed server lives. So when you define a listen address for a managed server, that's not enough information to tell WebLogic where a server lives. The machine, because you could have a multi-homed machine, or you could be using DNS names for your listen addresses, and WebLogic doesn't really know physically where those managed servers are deployed. So the concept of a machine is used to associate a server with a managed server, an application host or VM or physical server with a managed server. And the state here shows what state that server's in. So the admin server is running, but the managed server is not. It's shut down. We haven't started it yet, and we'll do that in just a second. So health, not reachable. That means that WebLogic admin server was unable to contact the managed server in order to determine health. And listen port is the listen port that we defined earlier. Okay, so now that we've created this server, go ahead and open up a terminal window. I want to create a new window. I want to leave the admin server running. I could put this process in the background, but I'm going to leave it open for now. We'll do a new tab here. Let's do a new tab. Okay, so back in the bin directory of my domain home, we're going to use the start manage WebLogic script to start a managed server. This is different than starting an admin server. When we start the admin server, we run start weblogic.sh or .cmd. There's a managed server specific script that we're going to run, and it's start managed weblogic.sh, and it takes two parameters. It takes the name of the managed server that you want to start and the URL to the admin server. So here's what the real syntax looks like. So I've typed in start managed weblogic.sh, the name of my managed server, and the URL in the form of T3, which is WebLogic's proprietary protocol, TCP protocol, :// and then the listen address for the admin server. This is the same address port combination that you use to access the admin console. So for the purposes of this lab, since I'm running everything on one server, I'm going to use localhost :7001. Leave off the /console. We're not connecting to the console application. We're connecting to the server directly. So what this tells the start manage WebLogic script is that I want to start MS1, and I have to point MS1 to the admin server. So when MS1 starts, it will attempt to connect to the admin server to download its configuration. Right now, MS1 doesn't exist. It doesn't know anything about itself because managed servers are designed to run autonomously. So I could have managed servers on this machine, on remote machines, and I can start them without ever knowing anything about them necessarily. So when we start the managed server, it must connect to the admin server and download its configuration. And that includes its listen address and its listen port. If we're starting the managed server for the very first time, the admin server must be running because it must download the configuration for the very first time. Right now, it has no idea what its listen address or its listen port is. So once you've typed in the parameters, go ahead and hit enter. Okay, so you can see here in the terminal window that we've attempted to start the managed server, but we've been prompted for the identity for that server. We've got to enter a username and password to boot this WebLogic server. Obviously, in a production environment or any environment where you're repeatedly starting and stopping servers, whether it's manual or scripted, this is very inconvenient. I don't want to have to be creating or entering username and passwords all the time whenever I start these servers. So for now, go ahead and enter in the admin username and password, which is WebLogic and WebLogic123. Once this starts, I'll show you how to get around having to specify credentials on the command line. Okay, so just like with the admin server, once the managed server is running, you'll see this output down here. Server state has changed to running. This means that your managed server is running. And you can see a couple lines up all the network information associated with this managed server. You can see that it's now listening on this IP address, 192.168.1.50, and port 8001. So this server was able to successfully connect to the admin server and download its configuration. So once the managed server is running, switch back to your browser and refresh the admin console. If you're not on the servers page, go ahead and navigate back to servers. There it is. By the way, this double spinning arrow icon, if you click that, it will refresh the console page. The console won't automatically update and refresh if there's a change. So you must either refresh it using your browser's refresh, or you can click this icon here and it will perpetually refresh every several seconds. If I click it again, it'll stop refreshing. So now that it's refreshed, you can see that MS1 is in a running state and its health is okay, and it's listening on port 8001. So that's great. We've created a managed server and we've got it running and we've connected it to the admin server. So now what I want to do is I want to show you how to get around being prompted for the username and password. First things first though, let's shut this server down because we're going to restart it in just a minute. So in order to shut down a server within WebLogic, go ahead and click on the Control tab here. And on the Control tab page, you'll see the servers table again, but the functions are different. Check the box next to MS1, and then you'll see that I can start, resume, suspend the server, shut it down, and restart SSL. What I want to do is I want to shut this server down. So click on Shutdown, and I got two options here. I can shut down when work completes, so if there's any applications that are deployed to MS1, and I select when work completes, MS1 will shut down when it's done processing all requests. And there's also force shutdown now, which is essentially it kills the server. It does not wait for application processing to complete. So let's go ahead and select force shutdown now. And you'll see at the very top, a request has been sent to immediately shut down the selected servers. So go back and switch back to your terminal window that you started the managed server in, and you should see a message that the server was shut down. So now what I want to do is I want to get around having to specify the username and password to start a managed server. The way I do that when my domain has been configured in development mode is that I create what's called a boot.properties file. This boot.properties file is a text file that only has 2 lines in it. And those 2 lines define the username and the password for starting the WebLogic server. So one already exists for the admin server. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. And this boot.properties file is located under domain home, servers, and then the name of the server. So let's go ahead and take a look at the admin server. So just to let you know where I am, I'm under domain home /servers/admin server. And inside this directory, you're going to see a security subdirectory. Let's change directory to security and do a listing in here. And you'll see that there's one file in here, and that's the boot.properties. Go ahead and cat this file. And you can see that there's 2 lines in here, like I said, username and password, and these values have been hashed. This file was created when we ran the configuration wizard to create this domain. So let's go ahead and create our own version of this file for MS1. So let's go ahead and back up to the servers directory. And inside the servers directory, you're going to see that we now have an MS1 subdirectory. So let's go ahead and change to that directory. Inside MS1, well, we have no security directory. WebLogic doesn't create this for you automatically. It's only used in development mode. So let's go ahead and create a security subdirectory. And inside security, let's create a file called boot.properties. And insert 2 lines and specify the username and password. So the first line is going to be username equals, and enter these values in plain text. Password equals WebLogic123. Now you're probably thinking, why are we specifying this password in plain text? Plain text passwords and text files on the file system, that's a big security no-no. Well, when we start this managed server, if those credentials are valid and the WebLogic service is able to successfully start, that file will be encrypted. So go ahead and save that file and exit out of your editor and restart that managed server using the start manage WebLogic script. Let's go back to the domain home bin directory and run that start manage WebLogic.sh. So the parameters are the name of the server, ms1, and then the URL to the admin server. So now when I run this, I should not be prompted for a username and password. Look at that. So my server is now running, and I was never prompted for a username and password. In some cases, there may be a log entry for the boot.properties file. And you can see here, storing user identity in the file, and there's the location to our boot.properties file. So it was able to read that file and boot the server. Okay, so go ahead and open up a new terminal window. What I want to do is I want to show you the contents of this file. It should be encrypted now. So go to the servers directory, ms1, security subdirectory, and take a look at the contents of that boot.properties file that you created. So you can see now that it's been hashed. And the hashing algorithm that WebLogic uses, the keys and so forth, are stored in the domain home security directory. So this serialized system.ini.dat file is used to maintain hashes for the domain. This is a very important file. I mentioned this in one of the earlier labs. If this file becomes corrupt in any way, then WebLogic will be unable to decrypt any passwords that were encrypted. Okay, now that we're done with the boot.properties file, go ahead and navigate back to the admin console and refresh the admin console. You can see that ms1 is indeed running.